No new infections of COVID-19 reported in Muskoka. Doug Ford talks cottagers with local mayors. And Zoo to You. We chat with Toronto Zoo's CEO. All that and more coming up right now. Welcome to Cogeco News for May the 7th. I'm James Bowler with what's happening in your community. Well, Muskoka once again is avoiding any new infections as there were no new confirmations reported by the health unit today. However, there still is an outbreak listed at Muskoka Traditions Chartwell Retirement Residence with only one reported infection still, a woman in her 90s who's currently in hospital. Meanwhile, the Premier spoke a bit today about his chat with cottage country mayors yesterday, including Mayor Graydon Smith.
I was on the phone yesterday. We had that conference call for about an hour and a half. I had all our ministers on there. We had a really wholesome discussion with the mayors, and I fully understand what they're facing day in and day out. And I told them I'd make sure that we got the message out on May the 24th, or the Victoria Day. I think it's on the 18th actually. But when you go up north, if you want to check on your plumbing at your cottage or heat and seeing what's going on up there, this isn't going to be the typical May the 24th weekend. I'm asking you, please, don't bring a whole whack of people up. It's not the party weekend that's been in the past. You know, go up there, check things out, try to bring your own supplies up there.
And joining me now from his home office is Mayor Graydon Smith. Mayor Graydon, thanks very much for taking the time.
Pleasure as always.
So we are going to talk about your conversation yesterday with Premier Doug Ford. I understand that there was quite a large group of mayors involved in this call, including the Muskoka mayors. So can you tell me first about the setup, which mayors were involved as well?
So it was a long list. It was most of the cottage country mayors throughout Ontario. So whether that was central Ontario like us or eastern southwest, even up into the northwest Ontario, in the Kenora area, there were quite a few people on the call, and I think it was very productive.
So what was the main topic of conversation? I'm assuming it was to do with opening up the flow of cottagers.
Almost exclusively. So there was an opportunity to hear from the Premier and some statements from him, as well as the Deputy Premier and the Minister of Municipal Affairs, which was great. Also, we had a chance to ask questions, and what was supposed to be a 45-minute session was well over an hour and a half, which was fantastic that the Premier and the Cabinet could devote that much time to us. And there were a lot of great questions, and I'd say there were a couple of common themes that developed quite quickly, and one of them that is imperative for everybody is that public safety is the number one thing we all want to achieve, and good health for our residents. And number two is that there are individual situations, depending on where you are in the province, that people have tried to approach maybe a little bit differently depending on where you are.
So in regards to the Muskoka specific conversation, what were some of the comments that came from you, from other mayors in the area in regards to this?
Well, I'll only speak for myself today. I had contacted Premier Ford to say I'm really hoping that we can have some consistent messaging and that the medical officer of health really is part of that messaging, because we have done our very best as municipal leaders to follow the advice of public health. That's really been our guide through all of this. And if Dr. Williams was saying one thing and the Premier another, it would be difficult and confusing for people. So I think that we've seen a couple of pieces of communication from Dr. Williams in the last few days that has opened the door for a little bit of more activity to take place, and really, the vast majority of people on the call understood that position.
So, Graydon, I guess the big question everyone has is, are we going to expect to see a large influx of cottagers coming in, at least by May long weekend?
Well, I'd put it this way. I don't think it would be a typical May long weekend because of the circumstance we're having. And really what we're looking at now is that property owners that are either here already or may want to be here is understandable that they want to do that. But this isn't an opportunity to come and have a party. This isn't an opportunity to bring friends. This is an opportunity for you as property owner to go to your property with your family, take a look around, see how things are doing. Ideally, stay and be in one spot or don't come, but kind of pick one or the other. And we're not looking for tourists right now. We're not looking for day trippers. We don't want that tourism component for the May 24th weekend. We're just not ready for it from a health perspective, from a business perspective, and what is open and what is not open. So I would say this is a measured approach, taking the next step in a process that slowly leads to getting back to a level of normal.
So has the Premier given indication that he's willing to also put out that messaging?
Yes, and actually have seen that messaging from his office already, and it's consistent with the way that I was thinking and others on the call were thinking, and so we're appreciative of that.
And Graydon, the last thing I do want to ask about is the discussion. Was there any discussion about the flooding situation? I know that it's not really impacting Bracebridge and Huntsville so much, but Bala seems to be really taking a hit on that.
There wasn't a direct conversation about that, but I can assure you that Mayor Harding has been in touch with the Premier directly about it and had those conversations based on conversations I've had with Mayor Harding and the Premier both. So it's certainly up on the radar. So people who are concerned about that should know that they're being well represented.
All right, great. Graydon, thanks very much for taking the time once again. We'll check in with you soon.
My pleasure.
All right, we are going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. And shifting away from COVID-19 for just a moment, Huntsville OPP was kept occupied this morning following a serious crash on Highway 11. The OPP is investigating the cause of a collision on Highway 11 that happened earlier today near Lindgren Road in Huntsville. According to police, a transport truck collided with a vehicle along the southbound section of the highway. A 70-year-old woman had to be airlifted to Toronto with serious but not life-threatening injuries. A 65-year-old man was brought to hospital in Huntsville with non-life-threatening injuries. Both were from the Huntsville area. The section of southbound road was pushed down to one lane while the investigation was ongoing. Well, it is Mental Health Awareness Week, and recently I chatted with one of the specialists with Hands Family Help Network about some of the programs they're still able to offer during this trying time for both parents and kids.
Mental health is identified as an essential service. So at Hands, we've been able to move to fully virtual services. Clients are able to access us online. We can set up telephone calls and video sessions with any of our clients. We have We would normally, pre-pandemic, have walk-in clinics twice a week throughout our sites. And during the pandemic, we still have virtual counseling clinics with clinicians. So we encourage people to reach out to us and call and get appointments. We also have are working in conjunctions with Connections, and we have safespot.ca, which is a link where teens and youth can contact and do a web chat with a youth worker around where they can get services during this time and find ways to connect. We also have our crisis line right now as well, that any family or youth can call during this time. Since it's Mental Health Week, HANDS always likes to provide a way for the community to become more aware of mental health. This year we've come up with a contest, of a family photo contest. So what we want is people to send in their photos of their family enjoying themselves. It's very easy. It's called Family in Harmony. So you send your photo of your family to HANDS, and there's prizes to be won, and we'll be evaluating those. So the first prize is a $500 gift card. So lots of prizes. We just want to see families enjoying themselves, being in harmony during this time of the pandemic.
And speaking of mental health, I've got a great way for you to stimulate your brain without ever having to leave home. Coming up next. And joining me now from the Toronto Zoo is Dolph Young. Dolph, thanks very much for taking the time today.
Great to chat.
So Dolph, I just wanted to talk to you a bit about what the Toronto Zoo is doing during this COVID-19 pandemic. There's some interesting things happening, and one of the great things I've noticed lately is the Facebook Live educational videos that you guys have been doing, which I'm sure are for children, but I feel like they're, for everybody, because I've been enjoying them as well. Can you tell me a bit about the decision to create those videos?
Well, this is such a challenging time with everybody being self-isolating. And, we have a really simple hashtag we've been living by, closed but still caring. And that includes sharing those messages where we can. So we made a decision to do Facebook Lives every day at 1 o'clock. And it lets us connect people to the animals that are still receiving world-class care at our zoo. It lets us talk about a lot of species that traditionally don't get a lot of profile. And it lets us also show off our amazing animal care staff. They're passionate, they're knowledgeable, and getting that moment where every individual can ask questions on social, they can get those questions answered and really be part of a meaningful narrative on animals and connecting people to the natural world. It's been an incredible addition for our zoo.
And as I understand it, it extends that mandate that we had recently chatted about, has been put down to educate and conserve as well, right?
Yeah, our mission, and we just updated this early in 2020, is to connect people, animals, and conservation science to fight extinction. We really believe passionately in connecting people to these animals, to the natural world, to the challenges these animals are facing in the natural world, and the day-to-day behaviors that everyone could consider adopting to reduce their impact on those wild counterparts.
So, Dole, tell me about the operations at the zoo right now. I did see in one of these live videos that the zookeepers are saying, the animals, they like having people around. So there are other ways of engaging the animals right now. What are the keepers doing?
So our animal care staff, there's the traditional husbandry work they do, making sure the habitats are clean, ensuring the animals are well fed and they're receiving their incredibly diverse diets, but also doing a lot of welfare and well-being work and doing a lot of enrichment. So keeping them active mentally. And traditionally, the guests play a big role in that. They're a form of stimuli as they go by. But our team, whether it's hiding food, engaging in new activities, or building new training devices, are making sure those animals' psychological well-being is looked after. And we're really paying close attention because it's not too often we can have an 8-week closure to consider what that looks like.
So, Dolph, let's talk about reopening, because I know, I really want to get back to the zoo. I've been talking to other people that, they're really interested in getting back and getting some zoo time as well. When could we possibly see the zoo reopening, and what kind of plan will you have in place? Because as we've heard, COVID-19 isn't going away anytime soon.
What's been absolutely phenomenal is whether it's our Food for Life campaign, our Facebook Lives, our education programs on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 o'clock, is the incredible support the zoos receive. People are excited to get outside, to get back, to see the animals. So our reopening plans, we have it kind of mapped out into 3 big blocks. Right now, we're working with folks, across all levels of government to see if we can open up as a drive-through zoo. Can we actually practice physical and social distancing by keeping people in their vehicles and having a touchless experience that you would drive through as a scenic safari? Then we look forward to I'll call it a softer opening, where our facilities, the buildings would be closed, but our zoo is over 500 acres, 10 plus kilometers of trails, lots of room for people to go out for a walk, to connect with these animals and see and learn about what's going on with these individuals. And then ultimately our third phase, getting back to a zoo operation that will resemble pre-COVID-19 life, with our facilities and everything open, as well as our keeper talks, as everyone knows and loves.
So is there an ideal time? I know the Ford government is holding back a lot of these larger scale operations from opening right now, but in your mind, would there be an ideal time to reopen?
Well, you know what? Our first priority is keeping, our staff, our guests, and our animals safe and healthy. So we're going to follow the lead of the medical officers of health, and we're going to make sure we look after the well-being of all those individuals. They're precious, and we're going to make sure we do this right. We'd all love to be open again tomorrow, but of course we have to wait until it's safe to do so.
So, Dolph, I have one last question for you, a bit of a fun one here, and I don't want to get you in trouble, but I just want to know, what's your favorite animal at the zoo?
I get this question frequently, and I think I have to admit to having 2 of them. Polar bear Juno, I feel like she and I have had a really good time together since I joined the zoo over 1.5 years ago. And Loki, black-throated thrush that lives in our Indo pavilion, who I get to greet frequently when I walk through there. Those are two of my favorites for sure. But I think it's like children; you're not allowed to pick.
All right, Dolph, thanks very much for taking the time today.
No worries. Thank you for your concern and passion for the Toronto Zoo.
All right, we are going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. The Trek for Tourette is returning this year, and amid the COVID-19 pandemic, it's taking a virtual twist on its new route.
Back in March, the Trek for Tourette had been scheduled for March 29th. We were about 2 weeks away, and then with COVID-19, we had to abruptly stop the event from happening and postpone and just kind of wait and see. Now, typically, the Trek for Tourette happens in March because it's an unpredictable month, weather-wise and temperature-wise, just like those living with Tourette have an unpredictable life. So now here we find ourselves 2 months later, and Tourette Canada has gone ahead with the Trek for Tourette on May 31st. So it's an unusual month for us. It's an unusual trek, so we're calling it an untraditional trek. So basically the gathering of the Trek for Tourette this year is going to have to happen virtually because we want to respect social distancing. So basically the gathering is going to happen through our Facebook and Twitter pages and hashtags of untraditional trek. And that's how we're going to be able to gather this year as community. And for a lot of those families who have a diagnosis of Tourette syndrome, the trek is a really important day because it's a chance for some of the young children who might be diagnosed to actually meet other kids with Tourette. And that just helps normalize things for them and their families, and it helps sort of build that community of support. I was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome when I was 14. All my life I made little facial twitches. Luckily, I'm very mild, so people really didn't notice my tics, and I didn't get a formal diagnosis until I was in high school. So luckily for myself, but since then I've become a bit of a community advocate for Tourette syndrome, especially with myself as a teacher in the community. I like to use these opportunities to help make a difference for those who maybe have a more severe case of Tourette syndrome, letting them know that yes, it can affect you, but you can also survive and have not just survive, thrive and have a career. So the Muskoka Trek for Tourette will be happening on Sunday, May 31st, which is unusual because usually it's in March, around noon, but it all depends on the individuals, and we're going to be having people share photos, videos, tweeting on Facebook and Twitter of their experience that day, and we'll be compiling it all and sharing it over the week afterwards to sort of build that sense of community and just show a phase of Tourette syndrome in Muskoka.
Now we're taking our last break, but when we come back, a look at all the virtual shows coming up, including one tonight. Stay tuned for Muskoka on Stage.
You may be stuck inside for a bit longer, so I've got some great shows to keep you entertained in the comfort of your home. Get ready for another run of Hunters Bay Radio's Quarantunes. This week features local band The Hillbirds. You can head over to Hunters Bay Radio's Facebook page for all the details for the show running Thursday night at 7 p.m. On Saturday, you can get your fill of 90s throwback tunes as Huntsville Festival of the Arts brings together former Huntsville High School students and staff to revive the Black Hole Cabaret in a quarantine reunion concert online. And in the true spirit of this former cabaret series, all proceeds raised will be donated to the local food banks to help support their need in this ongoing pandemic. Head over to huntsvillefestival.ca for more details. And get your tickets now for a very special virtual concert from Twin Flames. Twin Flames pushes the boundaries of contemporary folk with Indigenous Inuit influenced songs that incorporate both Western and traditional instruments. Tickets are on sale now for this Sunday online concert through Huntsville Festival of the Arts, which gets you access to the private Zoom presentation. If you're still not sure about this amazing duo, here's a bit of what you can expect during the virtual show. That's it for this week, but make sure to tune in again next week for some more virtual shows coming up soon.
And that is Cogeco News. For more information on the program, head over to yourtv.tv or connect with us on social media by searching YourTV Muskoka. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Remember to catch us live at 5 Monday to Thursday from everyone here at Cogeco News. Thanks for watching. Stay home, stay safe. I'll see you next week.